Clerk Math. All right, here we are. We're on the first part of 3.3. We're getting into the meat of Module 3, which is ordering rational numbers. So we've done all the fluffy stuff. We've kind of learned what a rational number is. We've categorized them. We've classified them. We've checked them out. We've figured out how to convert them, but now we actually have to put them on a number line and put them in order, all different types of rational numbers. So that's our objective. You should be able to use a number line to convert between equivalent fractions and decimals, and use a number line to explain what two rational numbers might be equivalent to each other. All right, first things first, rational number review. Okay, where do fractions and decimals belong on a number line? So we've got negative numbers to the left of 0. We've got natural numbers, which we haven't talked about, but they're basically counting numbers to the right of 0. We've got whole numbers, which include 0 and the right, and we've got integers, which span the entire number line right here. But where are my fractions and decimals? Hopefully, you're telling me that my fractions and decimals are between these numbers. All my fractions and decimals fall between these whole numbers. All this space, those have numbers in them, and they have an infinite amount of numbers in them. Okay, so rational numbers include this entire number line, truly entire. So let's take a look. All right, let's practice. See what you know. Label the fractions with the denominator of 2 and 4 between 0, 1, and 2. So what I want you to do is label this number line right here with fractions with a denominator of 2 and 4. So halves and fourths. Go. All right, hopefully you did something similar to this. So basically we have, on the bottoms, I did my halves, 0 halves, 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves, and 4 halves. And then on top, I did my fourths, 0 fourths, 1 fourth, 2 fourths, 3 fourths, 4 fourths, 5 fourths, 6 fourths, 7 fourths, and 8 fourths. All right, let's try this again, but with decimals. Label the rational numbers between the integers 0, 1, and 2 with decimals to the 10th place value. Go. Hopefully you did your best and squeezed in all these numbers. I did my best here, and I kind of did 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths, 7 tenths, right, and so forth. But I squeezed them in. So when you did the fractions up here, you should have evenly divided each piece into each whole into 2 halves. When you did the fourths, you would have divided each whole into 4 equal chunks. And then when you do tenths, you would divide each whole into 10 even chunks. That's where our rational numbers are. Okay, so now that we know where our fractions and decimals live, we need to start looking at how fractions and decimals represent the same value, which means that they are equivalent to each other. This number line below shows equivalent fractions and decimals from 0 to 1 or 1 to 0. They want us to fill in these missing pieces. So obviously, 3 tenths as a decimal is the same as 3 over 10 as a fraction. But there are some fractions that are reduced from their tenths format, and yet they still are equivalent to a decimal version. So some of those might be 1 half, for example. Hopefully everyone knows that 1 half as a decimal in tenths is 0.5. Okay, another one here would be 2 fifths is the same as 4 tenths, because I could just multiply my 2 fifths by 2, and that gives me 4 tenths. Okay, same thing with 3 fifths here. If I times the top and the bottom by 2, I get 6 tenths. 3/10 is the same. Now they're also showing us where 1/4 is, and hopefully you guys see that 1/4 is between 2/10 and 3/10. So as a decimal, 1/4 is 25/100. 3/4 is between 7/10 and, what do we think this one is? 8/10, because again, if I times by 2, I get 8/10. So between 7/10 and 8/10 is going to be 75/100, that's 3/4. 9/10 is 9/10. 7/10, we're going to write that as a fraction, 7/10, and I cannot reduce it any further because 7 is prime. 2/10, I can write as 2/10, but that can be reduced or simplified. If I divide the top and bottom by 2, I get 1/5. And then 1/10 is just 1/10. So again, you should see the pattern. Decimals are nice because they're very straightforward. 1/10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are all just tenths. 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. If I go between the tenths, I just add a 5 into the hundredths place. So 0.2, 0.25, 0.3. Fractions are where it gets a little tricky because I could just do 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, or I can reduce my fractions by dividing and get some other numbers like 1/10, 1/5, 1/4, 3/10, 2/5, 1/2, and so forth. So some of these we call benchmark fractions and decimals, and we should have these memorized. For example, you should know that 1/10 and 1/10 is the same. We should also know that 1/5 is the same as 2/10. That comes in handy. Every fifth I add adds another 0.2. We should know that 0.5 is the same as 1/2, and 25/100 is the same as 1/4. We should know that 75/100 is the same as 3/4. And if you know, this one's kind of extra special, because if you know 1/10 is if you know 1/5 is the same as 2/10, then every time I skip count by 2/10, I know I'm just adding another fifth. This one here. Right? Skip count, I'm adding another fifth. Skip count, I'm adding another fifth. So these are just things we need to start to memorize and work with a little bit more. So let's do some practice. All right, let's see if you can reflect on these two questions. What fraction is equivalent to 25/100? How do you know? And then you can use the number line on your previous page to complete each statement. 2/10 is the same as what? Fraction. If you can do it without looking back at your number line, that would be even better. But I understand we may not have these memorized yet. 3/10 is the same as what? Decimal. 1.75 is the same as what? Fraction. And 1.25 is the same as what? Fraction. All right, checking in on your reflection here. Hopefully you either know that 25/100 is the same as 1/4 because of quarters. A quarter is 1/4 of a dollar. Or because 25/100, which is the same thing as 25/100, is divisible by 25 and does turn into 1/4. On our number line, 2/10 is the same as 1/5. 3/10 is the same as 3/10. 1 3/4 or 7/4 is the same as 1 75/100. And 1 1/4 or 5/4 is the same as 1 25/100. All right, let's just keep practicing. So here is a number line to help you right here, but go ahead and write out those equivalent fractions or decimals for each of these numbers, and then answer the questions here. It says from which problems, or which number from all of these right here is the largest? How do you know? Which number from here is the smallest? How do you know? So take a good chunk of time to fill this in and answer these questions, and then come back and check in. Oh man, that's a lot of work, but let's talk about it. All right, 6/10. 6/10 is the same as 6/10, and I can reduce or simplify that to 3/5. So 6/10 is the same as 3/5. Or if you go back to our number line where we talk about how every fifth is worth 2/10, 6/10 is 3/5, right? 6 divided by 2 is 3. 1/4 is 0.25. We should know that by now. 9/10 is 9 over 10. 1/10 is 1 over 10. 1 7/10 would be 1.7. 1 4/10 would be 1 4/10, or 1 2/5, or 7/5 if I'm keeping it in AB format. 4/5 is the same as 8/10, again, because 1/5 is 2/10, so 2/10 times 4 is 8/10. 4/10 is 2/5, because again, for every 2/10 is the same as 1/5, so 2/5. And then this one kind of got me even, as I was trying to remember it, but 6/8 can be reduced to 3/4, and 3/4 is the same as 75/100. So a lot of this is based upon our knowledge of fractions and decimals and how they relate to each other. And the more that you practice it, the better you're going to get. So just keep with it. Ask questions if you need it. Okay. You should have also answered these questions at the bottom. The largest number is E, 7/10, because it's the farthest right on the number line. And the smallest number is D, 1/10, because it's the farthest left on the number line, or it's closest to 0, since we're only dealing with positive numbers in this grouping. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this lesson. So in our next lesson, we're going to actually be placing these on number lines a little bit more and doing some more practice problems. But until then, make sure all your notes are written down and ask for help if you need it. Bye.